Welcome everyone to another episode of The Adventure Writer. This is episode 2, where instead of dissecting one of my adventures this time, we're actually going to talk about one of my favorite mechanics in tabletop RPGs, which is countdowns. Before I continue, and you can skip this part directly and go, I started making chapters actually. This is really awesome. I learned how to do chapters after the first video, and I don't know, it's a really cool feature that YouTube has. So you can directly skip to like chapter 1 if you want that. But first I gotta say a huge thank you to all of the people that helped, because as you can see I have a different background, I have a much better setup, I have a lot of things that I have changed for the videos. The quality actually went way beyond because of all your feedback, and I just want to take a moment to thank all of you for that. Specifically Linus and Maren from Wormgold, the Goblin Explorer, and a lot of other people. Oh, Dragon's Library as well. The guys run a YouTube channel in Greek, and they really gave me a lot of good feedback on how to actually fix a few things. So yeah, here we are now. I hope things get better as we do more and more episodes, and I will try my best. I'm not exactly a professional. I've just decided to do this, out of fun. And the other thing that we're going to be changing is that we are going to keep these simple. I want it to be mostly talking, sort of a discussion with you, and we're more like talking to you basically. But I decided to stop doing cats, and as you can see there will be a lot of and a lot of things like that. But I hope you still get something out of these little videos that I'm doing, little informational videos, and there's still going to be a structure, of course. It's not going to be all over the place. And today, to finally get onto the topic, we're talking about countdowns. Now, what are countdowns? Countdowns are, as I said, my favorite mechanic in tabletop RPGs. And specifically, I just believe that having like a race against the clock, the different phases, events, all that kind of stuff basically that kind of helps you put some pressure on your players, helps you put things in the game that actually make sense in a way that they start feeling like it's a real world, there's actual things on the line. I feel like it really adds this dynamic to the environment that is really needed in order to have a successful tabletop RPG experience. And I say that because you could be dungeon crawling, you can do whatever you want, and I bet you've had this situation as a player or as a DM where you're like, why can't we just stop here? Why can't we just, rest and refresh our spell slots and, all of those things that we need to have before we go into the next combat? And yeah, that's a thing. Why don't you do that? If there is no actual reason for you to continue, then you won't, right? You will just stop and rest and do all the things that you need to do before continuing. So in order to fix that, there are a few very good references that I'm going to be sharing with you today, and how I will explain how I do it myself as well. Because if you watched episode 1 of The Adventure Writer for Mind Prison, I explained that I actually had a little bit of a race against the clock in the end of the adventure, where basically the players have to run outside of the drowned archives which are being drowned. Wow, very cool connection there. The drowned archives are being drowned. They're being flooded, and basically the flood is going to kill you if you stay there. But at the same time, you have to fight against all of the Nala and all these things. Anyway, I'm not going to reference episode 1 too heavily here. I do want to talk though about a specific RPG that does the countdowns really well. And specifically today, I want to talk about my most favorite inspiration, and I say that fully knowing what that means. Like, when you say favorite about something, it really needs to be your favorite, right? It really is my favorite, and I'm talking about Tales from the Loop. Tales from the Loop is a fantastic RPG by Free League Publishing, which is also, I would say, one of my favorite, if not my favorite, TTRPG publishing company. And they make this fantastic game called Tales from the Loop, along with a lot of other games that I really love from them. And Tales from a Loop specifically is about the 80s that never happened, just, a quick explanation of what it is. And you get to play kids that are very young, ages 10 to 14 if I remember correctly, who get in all sorts of weird situations and they have to solve mysteries. And despite the mysteries, they also have to do things that are basically mundane. And I love that. The book explains that you still live a mundane life as a kid. You still have to do all the things that you do every day. But that can come in between you and solving the mystery. So in this case, if you're trying to solve a mystery, let's say about, I try to come up with a story that would not spoil any of the stories for you because you might want to play it. The Four Seasons of the Mad Scientist, which is in the core book, is a fantastic story that spans over 4 seasons, actual 4 seasons, and it's really worth playing, so I really recommend it. But basically, yeah, the story that I came up with was that let's say that there is a robot that has gone haywire, right? And the retribution countdown, as the book calls it, for the game master, is basically the mechanic that allows you to tell the story in a way that, hey, if the kids spent like 3 days not doing things about the mystery, they haven't done this and this part, they haven't discovered this yet by that time, then this thing will have progressed. So for example, if the kids, let's say, find a haywire robot or something in a forest, and it seemed like, to be kind of like going crazy, if they don't do anything about it for like 2-3 days, or they don't revisit it or something, then maybe on the third day, they will hear about the robot, they will hear about it on the news, on the radio or something, or they will hear it from a neighbor, or when they go to school, or from their parents when they're having dinner. All of these things are very important, by the way. I'm not just mentioning them like, completely at random. It's important how you deliver the news as well, of course, because the retribution countdown will come, and it needs to resonate with the players. It needs to be like, hey, you didn't do anything about it, so things are happening now. And specifically for that reason, let's say that the haywire robot attacked someone in town. Let's say that they take another 3 days to actually continue with the mystery. And instead of attacking someone this time, a family member of one of the players got attacked. And immediately the mystery becomes way more intimate with the players. The players are way more involved. The kids are way more involved. And it creates drama, it creates suspense. For example, again, I really want to reference the stories, but I shouldn't. There are some situations in the stories where even the parents of the kids get involved. And you're like, oh no, like, I care about my parents. Okay, it's a fictional world, but you get what I mean. And this whole countdown mechanic, like, keeps you on your toes. And the thing is, it's not an actual race against the clock. I'm actually against the actual race against the clocks. I don't like clocks. I don't like, putting time, like, time trials and whatnot in my games. You still need to have the three pillars, like, role-playing, encounters, and, like, exploration. So you cannot really have, like, a time trial in, like, a time racing kind of, like, thing in a TTRPG effectively or efficiently, I would say. If you've seen it, being done somewhere, I really would love to hear about it. Like, please leave a recommendation. But generally, it's just an effect. It's just like these events happen. The players don't know what is going to happen. They don't know how it might affect them. And I loved it because I remember playing Tales from a Loop in one of the adventures in the core book, and the players were like, "Oh no, we took too long to actually solve the situation, and now things are getting worse." And that really allowed the adventure to progress in such a natural way without forcing anything. I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to say, oh yeah, you messed up. No, the players knew from what had just happened that, oh man, we should hurry up. We should go there and check it out again. And that got them in trouble with their families. That got them in trouble with the town, with school specifically. It was fantastic. So Tales from a Loop, fantastic reference for the countdown mechanics. I believe it is on page 81 or so. I do want to show you at least a couple of pages because they have like this fantastic things here, as you can see, which basically shows like, all of these things here, how exactly you can like progress the mystery. These are just examples. It's not an actual adventure or mystery. It just explains how it works. So basically it shows like, hey, they could like go solve this, and then this leads them to that. And then at the bottom, there's always like a little table that shows like, the retribution countdown, which shows all the things that could actually happen if they're late. Now, having talked about Tales from a Loop, I'm going to leave that on the side for now and move on to something else which you might be more familiar with. My favorite official adventure in Dungeons & Dragons is The Rime of the Frost Maiden. And Rime of the Frost Maiden actually has, I would say, not just my favorite, like objectively, if I may be bold enough to say that, objectively the best countdown mechanic any D&D adventure has had. And I absolutely love that, because it is introduced from the very start. Now, Dungeons & Dragons Adventures official modules are notorious for being extremely bad in the first levels. Like, for example, the one where you go to Hell to the Avernus campaign, It's horrible. For the levels 1 to 5, if I remember correctly, or 1 to 3, or generally until you make it to the hell levels, is terrible because your players are involved in things that do not matter at all later. Like they learn about characters, they learn about things that have nothing to do with what happens later in the campaign, and that's weird. So anyway, getting back to the countdown mechanics, because that is what we are here to talk about. Rime of the Frost Maiden introduces a fantastic tale, a fantastic situation at the start of the game. You're thrown into an area where there's something dire already happening. I mean, you don't need to be a DM or a player or have played this to know this. This is not a spoiler, so don't worry. As I said, I will avoid spoilers. And if you are ever introduced to Rime of the Frost Maiden, the first thing that you learn is basically that you're thrown in 10 towns in Icewind Dale, which is basically under an eternal frost, an eternal rime, as they call it, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I read this, so keep that in mind. But nonetheless, there is something happening, and you're trying to solve what is going on, this whole situation. And basically, as you go through all of the things that are happening like around you, you try to explore the area, you go from town to town, asking people, talking to people, and like seeing what is going on, what are the troubles and whatnot. You basically have like this thing happening in the background where time is running out slowly. And the players find out about that slowly and surely. Now again, not a spoiler, but I'm not going to continue from here onwards. But if you do want to write an adventure and you do want some ideas on countdown mechanics, Icewind Dale is definitely one of the best, if not the best. Definitely check it out if you want something more D&D related in terms of countdowns. So anyway, having said that, this brings me to the end of this episode, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something again today. I am going to try and keep these a little bit shorter if possible. I do like them to be like more free form as I did today, where I just, talk about one of my favorite subjects when it comes to like narrative design, something that I find useful in many ways when I'm writing adventures myself. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, I would like to thank all of my patrons. Please check out my Patreon if you do want to support me. That is the absolute way to do it, absolute best way to do it. And other than that, you can find me on any socials under Kelfecil. Like and subscribe. I guess that's something that I should always say, right? But anyway, until next time, may Starlight guide your way, my friends. Bye-bye.